Hi, I'm Susan, and this is my husband Dave.
Today we're going to do a video for you on how to keep your love on, and it's about building healthy relationships, connections, communication, and setting boundaries. What our vision statement at Vineyard Community Church is making kingdom disciples who know Jesus and love well. And we want to talk about the love well portion of our vision statement. And we all should live our lives more than people that just simply believe in Jesus and we're saved and we know we're going to heaven after we die. But we also need to be good human beings. And one of the ways that our humanness is expressed is in relationships. And we want to be the type of people that are part of the answer in relationships rather than part of the problem. And we've gleaned some really insightful keys about relationship from a book which Danny Silk wrote, which is called Keep Your Love On. And we want to just unpack some of the things on that. The subtitle of it is Connection, Communication, and Boundaries. And these are three areas that we have to have working in a healthy way in order for our relationships to be successful. But our connection, communication, and boundaries can be experienced either in a positive or a negative way based on our position. And these positions we would define as powerless people or powerful people. Or another way to say it is people that are coming at relationships in a fear-based way or a love-based way. And depending on whether you're doing the fear dance or the love dance, it can affect your connection, your communication, and setting boundaries. Mm-hmm. And go ahead.
Well, when we start out all of our relationships, a marriage or a relationship where we're working together in a common goal, we always desire for a lasting, intimate, sweet relationship with connection. But we learn from a very long time from the painful experiences in our life and people's failures to react with fear and creating distance in our relationship when there's a painful experience there in relationships. So Danny Silk talks about how we react with rattlesnake tools. And when you're faced with a rattlesnake, you do one of three things. Either there's fight, flight, or freeze. And we react this way towards painful relationships. We either rise up in anger and fight, yelling, belittling, ridiculing, accusing, all for the purpose of pressuring and pushing down and intimidating. Or we flight. We are out of there. We flee, we escape, we change localities, jobs, people, spouse. I am out of here. We punish people by just not showing up. We are not reliable. We have no self-control. We're not responsible. So we escape through addictions. Any way to not show up. The last way is to freeze. We clam up. We withdraw our love, we go into ourselves, and nobody gets to see who we are or what we're thinking. We create, we pout, we cry, show self-pity, put guilt trips on people, but it's all inward and no one gets to see who we really are, and we're not vulnerable and revealing the truth of that.
So that is kind of profiling the way that people act out of fear or that powerless place. And most everyone is experiencing. We want to talk about connection a little bit here, and that's kind of the first of three areas of this relationship, this healthy relationship that we're after. And connection, and most everyone's experienced what it's like to connect with someone. I mean, you ever meet someone and just go, oh man, we just hit it off. We connected. And it's like you're energized. There's a powerful thing that you experience. And then, however, we've probably also experienced the other where something's wrong. You feel alienated. You feel disconnected. I mean, Susan and I have been married for about 40 years, and when I'm something's happened and I'm disconnected from her, all of a sudden I'm just I've lost my energy. I'm frustrated. I got all this kind of mind trash going around in my head, and it causes me to do things that I wouldn't usually do. And so it's real important that we guard our connection in a relationship. And we've mentioned that there's a difference between being powerful and powerless. And some things powerless people say is things like, I can't because they, or stuff like, I have to go to work, or it's because they made me mad, or I'll try. That's a person saying that all of these things out here, they have the power over me. I'm powerless. I have to go to work. Well, I'll try. Or they made me so mad. Well, you made me do that. They have no power within. It's a powerless situation. And the circumstance that people around us have authority in our life. But if you want to be a mature person in a relationship, one of the keys to maturity in life is don't react, but respond. Reacting has to do with what's coming at me. Responding is based on what I have decided and chosen in my life based on the life of God in me. And I respond to things rather than react. And powerful people are when we talk about a powerful person, sometimes we think about a guy that comes in, he takes over, there's no air left in the room, he's the dominant person. But that's usually a powerless person. A powerful person is someone that knows how to control themselves. And Danny Silk writes this, I want to read this quote. It says, powerful people do not try to control other people. They know it doesn't work, and that's not their job. Their job is to control themselves. And as a result, they're able to consciously and deliberately create an environment in which they want to live. They don't try to get people to respect them. They create a respectful environment by showing respect. And that's what we're after in our connection. And one of the most important things to learn and be aware of is this battle between fear and love in relationships and how not to dance the fear dance.
And fear-based reactions never bring out the best in us, and they never resolve conflict. So the way to respond, we look at Jesus. We look at what God did to us. He had this relentless, powerless love that would...
Powerful.
Powerful love, that paid the ultimate price, even unto death, to come and reestablish connection with us and repair the brokenness that we have in our lives. And so once He is our Lord, He lives on the inside of us. And He said, I haven't given you the spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind. My love, perfect love, casts out fear. So what God wants us to do is to make the decision that I'm going to establish connection in this relationship with you. And I'm going to love you no matter what you do. I'm going to keep my love turned on. And so that we create a punishment-free, fear-free, and control-free environment. So people they can have a relationship with us like we have with the Lord.
And when you have that kind of an attitude in your relationship, then that creates an atmosphere where you're not afraid of me anymore. Like, oh, I don't want to say that because don't ever talk about that. Don't mention that when he comes home. People, they're learning how not to connect. They're learning how to distance themselves.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, if Susan can love me in a way that is based on her commitment and choice to love me, rather than if you do, then I won't, and all this kind of stuff, that's designed based on fear and distance rather than connection. And so it's real important that we mimic, or not mimic, but reflect the kind of love. It says we love one another because He first loved us, and that the kind of love that God had toward us was not, well, if you'll do this, then I'll come and save you if y'all would shape up. God came while we were His enemies, while we're sinners, and that's the kind of love that we're supposed to have.
Right, and the fear-based reactions that we had growing up, those were instinctive. We didn't think about those, but to put on love and to keep it on when people make mistakes and there's great conflict. That really requires deciding and making a choice and grabbing a hold of your will and your mind and your body and how you're going to act and what you're going to say. And so another thing that Danny talks about is 7 pillars of healthy relationships. He's drawing from Proverbs 9:1, where it says that wisdom has built her house, she has hewn out her 7 pillars. So he talks about 7 essential ingredients in making a healthy relationship. The first one would be love. What I'm saying essentially is I care and value all of you, everything about you, your dreams, your destiny, your health, everything. And then I demonstrate it with actions in situations that arise in our life together. And the result is you feel the love. It's not just talk. You really feel safe and you feel significant and valued. The next quality would be honor. And basically that's 2 people preferring the other, empowering one another, bringing out the best in one another, showing consideration and kindness and thoughtfulness. The next would be self-control. I control myself. I'm not trying to control anybody else. I am reliable. I make myself do what I say I'm going to do. I manage my freedom. Another example.
Isn't the problem there, just to interject here, the problem that we have in this whole self-control thing is usually we try to do other control. He said, you take responsibility of what you're supposed to do, and manage yourself and everything. And dear, if you don't do that, then I'll do it for you. Now, and that causes problems because the only person I have a right to control is me, and I don't have the right to control another person. And when self-control is in a relationship, then it can flourish because you realize, oh, he's not trying to manipulate me and kind of dominate me, and she's not trying to dominate me. It's a very key pillar to these relationships.
Right, it's respectful. You get to be who you really are. You're not being controlled. You're free to be who you are because love requires freedom. But also the next one of the qualities would be responsibility. That's the ability to respond and to perform in difficult situations and realities in my life that I might not like, but I'm going to show up. I'm not going to run away. I'm going to be there. And the next one would be truth. That's where I crack open my heart and show you what's really happening in my life. And I value and understand my needs and my feelings and my thoughts, and I find words to let you know. And you, in turn, see my vulnerability, and you can respond from that.
You realize these pillars build on each other, because if you have love, honor, self-respect, and responsibility, then when you have truth and you open up and show what's really going on inside, if you don't have that honor and love happening, then you're going to see and go, "Are you kidding me?" And somebody's going to get mad, and so all the stuff's going to start slinging. So when you have love, honor, self-control, responsibility working as kind of pillars in your relationship, then when it comes time to reveal something, maybe a flaw, a sin, or a shortfall in our lives, then there's no threat that this is going to do kind of the fatal blow to the relationship, that the atmosphere of respect is established.
Right. One of the next qualities is faith. That's where I live my life in the audience of one, under the Lord's authority and according to His code of virtue, not my own, and not what I think about situations. And I trust that He's going to download into me the heavenly resources I need, like strength and patience and self-control, and help me when I'm struggling with these things. Lastly, is vision. Is that essential ingredient? We all need to know that, have a personal vision, what God has called me to do in my life, what am I to contribute to this world? And as a couple, we need to know what God has called us to do, a shared vision, a mission that we can call each other up into and remind each other of. So Danny Silk talks about how important it is also to be able to love in the language that a person both receives and gives love. And he's referring to Gary Chapman's book, 5 Love Languages. And the 5 love languages would be touch, physical touch, words of affirmation, quality time,
Giving of gifts.
Giving of gifts, and acts of service. And in those ways, people respond and hear when you're loving them, feel nurtured and nourished when we love in those languages. So it's beneficial for us to find out, study them, care about them enough to find out how they receive love and how we can give it to them. Okay.
So we're talking about connection, and now we want to talk a little bit about communication. And to know someone else and develop your connection, you must be good at communicating. Through the years of Susan and I have done marriage classes and teaching for 25 years plus, and in all of our time in ministering to couples, the number one, without exception, area of challenge that couples have communicated to us is in the area of communicate. Our problem is communication. He says this and she hears that, and problems with communication. And if you're going to be good in relationships, you're going to have to learn to be good at communication. And again, if you're communicating out of a fear-based, powerless position, your communication is going to come out threatening, garbled. But if you're doing it from a powerful, love-based, self-control position, then it's going to be not a threat. It's going to be where people can openly communicate without fear being involved. And the number one goal in communication is to understand and to be understood. And there's always two parts to communication, obviously, the speaker and the listener, and you have to be good at both. And when you're in this struggle of communication, there's all kind of psychological categories that have been ascribed to communication. The first one I talk about in psychology, they say passive communication, but I call it shutdown communication, where people just shut down, they back up, they don't communicate. The other is what they call aggressive communication. And I call this steamroller, where you come in and, all right, shut up, this is the way it's going to be, and people just steamroll over other people, and that's a form of communication. Then there's another one I call smoke and mirrors, and they call it passive aggressive. This is somebody that says stuff and kind of people wonder, and they're sending torpedoes, and they say things and you don't really know what they meant, but they're kind of hiding something and you don't know. These are people that are in fear-based, and they're just trying to make sure that they show off the right side and everything. And then there's the last one, which is what I would call a powerful and love-based communication. That's assertive. That's where you don't shut down, you don't try to run people over, you're not smoke and mirrors, you're just asserting what needs to be communicated, and you're, in a sense, not standing your ground, but you're making sure that you're understanding and being understood. Anyway, one last thing about communication. In communication, we cannot be expected to be a mind reader. Needs and desires have to be clearly communicated in order to be responded to. It's amazing how many times I've heard couples say, well, she never told me. And her response was, well, if you love me, you should have known. Well, give the guy a break, man. He's got to at least hear. And it's not fair to expect people to just read your mind, to figure out what your needs are without them being clearly communicated, and that's real important.
Assertive communication by a powerful person would look something like this. They use I messages in dealing with conflict. I have this need when you did this, and I need to feel this. So they take the time and the effort to both value and understand what's going on in themselves, what their thoughts are, their feelings are, and their needs are. And they find words to clearly and openly divulge to you what's going on inside of me. So that when you hear an I message, it's not judgmental, it's not telling where you need to change, it's basically letting you know this is what my need is, this is what I'm feeling, and this is how you're affecting me. And a person who is careful at listening and powerful at listening is seeking to understand the need being expressed to them, and find ways where they can meet it. And also make adjustments in their own life where, okay, I can see where that would be kind of mess you up. And I want to produce the right things in you, so they make the changes necessary.
Right, and that's totally different than a you message. And when people are given what we call you messages, that's always on the attack. Well, you never, and you always, and you, how come you? And so it's all directed at, it's your fault. You're the problem in this situation. You're ruining the relationship, and also. But when you do an I message, it's, as Susan said, it's based on this is what's happening with me. And so in a sense, that's taking responsibility for what's going on inside of me, not me going on the attack and doing that. So that's good communication.
Right.
Learn how to do that. Last thing we want to talk about is boundaries. If we do not know how to set in relationship, if you don't know how to set appropriate boundaries in your life, when to say no, not being compelled to do everything for everybody, then you'll end up ruining the relationships that are most important to you. And if you this really plays in very keenly to the idea of being a powerful person versus a powerless person. You know, a lot of times people come with us and say, you need to come help me do this, and I really need you to help. And you just, you had something else, you have another, even a close family need, but you have to, you just can't say no. And so you end up breaking down a healthy boundary in order to go do something, and you end up dissipating that. And when we allow these levels of intimacy, Susan's going to talk about that in a second, to be broken down, you end up getting invaded by outsiders, and they're a threat to our closest relationships.
You end up putting strangers in giving them all of your time, your resources, and your energy that should be reserved for your highest priorities and the people that are the closest to your core. So we need to have levels of intimacy, and we can't violate the priority of those core connections. An example, Jesus himself prioritized relationships. He had the 70, then he had the 12, and he had the 3, and he had the one closest to him, and we have to have the same. We have to have the core, which is God, that place where we draw endless resources from. He has to be there, because if a person is there or a hobby's there, those turns into idols. But the second place is for our spouse, or the closest relationship we have if we're not married. And the third level of intimacy would be your children and your grandchildren. The next would be your closest friends, your co-workers. Then it gets into acquaintances. And finally, people in your locality. And then farthest out would be scary people that violate and exploit all of your resources. But we'll get more into that.
Anyway, it's learning how to prioritize. Like my core is the Lord Jesus Christ, and He is the center of my life. And really, I can't even let Susan take that place, because as Susan said, that becomes an idol. But my next level is my wife Susan, and she is, when it comes down to whether her or someone else, it's always her. It's always her. Now, in the beginning of our marriage, it wasn't that way. If we were going to go surfing with my brothers or spend time with my wife, that was a no-brainer. It's 3-foot offshore winds, and I'm out of here. But anyway, I learned that my brothers were invading my core relationship with my wife. So it's real important that we learn to be a powerful person in regard to setting boundaries.
One illustration of how this applies is, if you meet somebody at church, you don't really know them, and they explain that their car blew up. Well, I might express my sympathies, but that's about my only response to that. But then if it's someone who I've talked to a few times, I might recommend to them my mechanic. If it's my child, I might pull up my wallet and say, here, let me help you with that. But if it's my spouse, we're going shopping. We're getting a new car, because that's my first priority, and things have to be dealt with there. So
we hope that you've been helped some way about your building healthy relationships, learning about how to connect, how to communicate and how to set boundaries in a powerful way rather than a powerless, in a love-based way rather than a fear-based way. So thanks for watching today, and I just want to encourage everyone that's seen this, remember to work on keeping your love turned on in the area of connection, communication, and setting healthy boundaries.
There's always going to be scary people in the world, but sin and death and disconnections and failures of all kinds have already been defeated by God. And He is going to keep His love turned on toward us. What we need to do when we are confronted with enemies is keep our love on no matter what happens.
We're all blood, blood, blood.